Okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Dalene Allen, Executive Director of BNI Nova Scotia. What's BNI? That's Business Network International, the world's largest business referral organization. And I am thrilled to introduce BNI member Lola Gentile.
Hi there. How are you?
Great. So good to see you. Now, I have to tell you, if you need a mortgage or you want somebody to review your mortgage, Lola is the person to do that. So tell us all about you, Lola. What's your background?
Hello, everyone. Lola Gentile, Premier Mortgage Center. My background is primarily finance. So I started right out of school working for the Bank of Nova Scotia and spent a 20-year career with them, learning everything about finance from foreign exchange to estates and trusts, investing and lending. And 9 years ago, I decided to, and the final 3 years of my tenure with Scotiabank, I was a mortgage broker for them and loved it. And 9 years ago, I became an independent broker, and I'm now with Premier Mortgage, and I deal with, mortgages with multiple different lenders.
Excellent. So certainly having a financial background gives you an added advantage because you can kind of look at the overall financial situation of a person. And one of the things that I know you are passionate about is financial literacy and education to your clients. But I want to hear a little bit about your family background because you had the best education in the whole wide world, Lola.
Thank you. Yes, I did. Both of my parents are immigrants. They came to Canada 60 years ago from Italy, and I always said that my mother was the original banker. She taught me everything I know about money. I think the biggest problem these days is people think money is difficult, or there's this big mysterious thing behind it, and money is fairly simple. You just have to stop being afraid of it. And my mother, with no formal education, managed to, help three of us get through university. We all have very good jobs and educations, and we all learned about money at mom's knee. So we learned about responsible borrowing, how to save our pennies, how to invest. And it's kind of ironic. There was a book about 20 years ago called The Wealthy Barber. And my father is a barber and was a barber for 60 years and still cuts hair at the age of 80. And he bought that book because he liked the title.
Wow.
And he fell in love with the book. He learned the message, understood the message, and as a result, he started investing in stocks and bonds and RSPs, and it's not something, it didn't matter that his daughter worked for a bank. He'd never listened to me, but he took this book to heart, and honestly, my parents taught me everything I know about money, and they taught themselves how to be financially responsible.
Wow. But also growing up where they don't teach financial literacy in school, you have such a wealth of knowledge. And I know that one of the things, your customer service is phenomenal, Lola, that you have repeat clients, but the fact that you can educate, especially people like home or first-time home buyers and people new to Canada to understand the system, because it's a lot different when somebody moves, or even that first time. I know that you really, really pride yourself on great customer service. So do you only do residential mortgages, Lola?
I do residential mortgages primarily, although I can do commercial mortgages. I also do private mortgage financing for the very difficult, hard to place deal that can't be done with a traditional lender. And you're right, education is the best part of my job. I love teaching people about that stuff because you're right, they don't teach it in schools. I've actually been invited to speak to some local high schools and local high school students on how they can be better, financially prepared for their future once they finish school. And first-time home buyers are always terrified because it is overwhelming. And so I do primarily focus on residential mortgages because I love seeing somebody's face when I tell them they're approved, or that they can afford their dream home, or they can move out of the apartment and move into their, pretty little dollhouse that they found. And it's just the most satisfying part of my job.
Exactly. Helping somebody find their dream home. I can imagine. Very gratifying in what you do. So here's the thing that it's not only about rates, is it, when it comes to a mortgage, Lola?
No, that's the biggest misconception that I try to teach people about. It's so easy to be hung up on rates that people kind of lose sight of what their personal situation is. Um, as an entrepreneur, as a self employed person, I'm the more difficult customer to get a mortgage for because my income is inconsistent. My income is commission income. So it's not a guaranteed paycheck every week or every other week or every month. So lenders sometimes make it harder for self employed people to get mortgages. And so we might not qualify for the best rates simply because those best rate mortgages have very, tough restrictions on them. It's only for a specific person. It's or an area of borrowing. So I try to fit the product to the person. I try to understand where they're coming from. What's more important to them? Is cash flow important? Are they a seasonal laborer? Are they, I always have the discussion with the customer when they sit down and talk to me about a pre-approval. The first question I ask them is, what is your monthly payment? And they always have a pause and like, I don't understand. I thought it was just going to get a pre-approval. Well, no, because if you tell me you don't want to go beyond a certain monthly payment, I know where to start. And I don't, as a rule, I tell all my customers right up front, I will not pre-approve them for the maximum amount. I simply refuse to do so. They need to be able to tell me my comfort level is this range. I absolutely can't afford to go anywhere beyond that. And it gives me a starting point because then I can understand better what I'm working with. And are they going to make payments, lump sum payments for their mortgage? Do they want to be able to skip a payment during the year because they're seasonal employees? We have to fit the product to the customer. The rate is the last thing we discuss.
Exactly. But isn't that interesting? Because that's usually one of the first things a person asks, instead of also like we're in the middle of a pandemic right now,
Right.
and interest rates are really good. And a person, wouldn't this be a great time for you to renew their mortgage or at
Mm-hmm.
least review it? But what about penalties? I think that's something that a lot of people don't even think about. And that's huge in getting a mortgage, isn't it?
Yeah. Penalties are a really big thing, and that's always part of my conversation. And penalties kind of tie into those rates. You could see this really amazing rate, and where your neighbor says, I got this really great rate, and they know that they're shopping for a house, and they'll say, you should talk to this person but along with that rate could be huge restrictions that you're not even aware of.
Exactly.
You can't sell the house for the term of the mortgage. Or if you pay off the mortgage at any point during the term, your penalty is going to be, say, 3 times as high as it would on a normal mortgage because they're offering you that rate. You can't refinance that mortgage or you can't prepay that mortgage. So ultimately, you've got to think, is it worth the penalty? And every penalty calculation is something you really need to take into account. If you're in an industry like, say, military, where there's a good possibility you could be transferred. We would look at a restrictive product for a military person because if they're going to be transferred potentially in the next 3 years, why would you put them in a product that's going to result in a penalty that could be 12 or 15 or $16,000 because they have to move, but that, they wanted the rate and they're not allowed to break that product. Do you know what I mean? It's
Oh,
the
exactly. Yeah.
penalty calculation has to be top of mind as well.
Yep. Oh, and all of these things, since I started to work more closely with mortgage brokers, you really offer a phenomenal service. And because of a financial background, I just find that you are so much more equipped than the average mortgage broker because you understand what the banks offer. And obviously, you made a choice to become independent so that you would have likely more options to be able to, and I loved what you said, to fit the mortgage to the client, that each person is as an individual that is getting what's right for them.
Um, I was with a major Canadian bank for 20 years, and I loved my time there. And there is no better training ground, in my opinion,
Exactly.
Because you were right. I learned everything. I learned everything from the beginning, which would be credit, bank accounts, borrowing, lines of credit, mortgages, the rest of it, right through to estates and trusts. So I try to bring financial planning to the whole mortgage process. I try to ask the big questions. Is there a potential that you could move in the next 5 years? Do you think you'll be getting a promotion? Will you be expanding your family? That sort of thing. And the only reason truly that I left the bank is because you have one product to sell. That's it. There's one mortgage. It's either fixed or variable, and that's it. But if that customer doesn't fit that specific box, they have no other options. They would have to find another lender. As a broker, I still actually do a lot of business with my former employer because they allow me to sell their product. But I also have 22 different lenders, and I haven't yet had a situation where I haven't been able to find a solution for someone.
And watch, because you are so passionate about what you do, and again, the high level of customer service, that must make your being able to help a client, number one, more gratifying, but more important, greater ability to make sure that you're able to get them what they want.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like I've done mortgages now for certain people. I've done mortgages for them, their parents, their children, their brothers, their sisters. There are some families that I've done every single family member's mortgage. I have customers from my banking days that found me after I had left the bank, and came back to me because they enjoyed the process the first time around. I really, really, and another reason why I left the bank was because I didn't enjoy investing the way I enjoyed it lending money. And for no other reason than I find it fascinating that you can be so creative with solutions for people, right? It's not just black and white. There's a lot of, different nuances to how to make a deal work. And I found I liked the challenge of it. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, and again, if you've been turned down, if anybody who's watching this, you've been turned down, I highly recommend having that conversation with Lola, because it's almost like, here's what I think, Lola, when somebody has heard no, Lola's like, oh no, you're coming to me.
Yeah.
But you're really there for your clients, Lola, and you've been in the industry a while, and yet your passion still comes through for helping people.
Yeah. I've been in financial services now for 28 years, and I'm certainly not bored by any stretch. I find it's a different challenge every day. I love going to work every day. I love doing my job, and I wouldn't have stuck with it this long if I didn't truly love it.
Exactly.
And unless I win the lottery tonight, odds are I'll be doing it for at least another 15 or 20 years because I love it. I really, really do, and I have no intention of not doing it. And I have driven my children fairly crazy, but I have made sure they're financially literate, and they both have RSPs and they have TFSAs and they have savings, and they're only 22 and 24, but they have credit. They've got perfect credit because their mother is constantly after them to understand that this is a privilege and you have to treat it right. And if you do, when the time comes, you'll have no issues borrowing money for a house, for a car. Like my son was 22 when he bought his first brand new car with no
Wow.
parents. So,
Wow. But same thing, to have that understanding of
yeah.
how the world works. So if you're looking for a new mortgage, a review, I highly recommend Lola Gentile, Premier Mortgage Brokers. Dalene Allen here from BNI. I hope you're having a fabulous day. See you later, Lola.
Bye. Thank